This week we begin to talk about connect, which is how we connect the dots and make sense of the world. How to go beyond learning to reasoning and why reasoning is needed beyond simple learning as we have covered last week. This leads us into logic as well as its limits, both fundamental as well as those arising from the uncertain nature of facts and rules that we learn about the world. So we'll talk about reasoning under uncertainty in some detail this week, and then come full circle back to learning, where some of the techniques that we'll study, back to Bayes' rule and things like that again, will help us to learn better, this time from text. So here we go. To motivate why we might need to connect the dots and go beyond mere learning and search, consider the following question. Who is the leader of the USA? And consider asking this question of a search engine or any web intelligence system. The system might be aware of some facts, such as X is the prime minister of some country C, X is the president of another country C, and many such facts for different values of X and C. But there is no such fact that X is the leader of the USA. For example, we might have learned many such facts by looking at text and extracting them from textual documents, something that we'll come to towards the end of this week. But for the moment, assume that we do have many such facts, but there is no such fact for X being the leader of the USA. Somehow we haven't learned this because we've only learned the facts about specific posts like president or prime minister. So now what? Well, if X is the president of C, then X is the leader of C. The system might know such facts or rules which constitute its knowledge. As a result, combining a fact such as Obama is the president of USA, the system might be able to conclude that Obama is the leader of the USA. This is an example of reasoning. Taking facts and knowledge, which is rules, and combining facts and knowledge to come up with new facts. But reasoning can be tricky. Manmohan Singh, for example, is the Prime Minister of India. But Pranab Mukherjee is the President of India. India has a Prime Minister as well as a President. So who is the leader of India? You need more facts and rules to figure this out. Much more knowledge is therefore needed. For example, one might need to know that in India, the President is a ceremonial post, whereas the Prime Minister is a leader. In other countries like France, it is the President who is the leader. So knowledge is not necessarily static, and it can lead to confusions if one doesn't understand the semantics of knowledge. So reasoning is not as simple as it appears at first. Let's take a look at a few more examples to really understand how deep the problems with reasoning can actually become. We've seen this example a few weeks ago. Book me an American flight to New York as soon as possible. Does the questioner or requester want a flight on American Airlines or on any American carrier? It might depend on where that person is. If he's in London, he might well mean any American carrier, but if he's in New York, or rather not in New York, but in Boston, he might definitely mean the American Airlines flight. This New Yorker who fought at the Battle of Gettysburg was once considered the inventor of baseball. This is a question posed to the IBM program Watson during the Jeopardy! Challenge of 2009. There are two possible answers if you look at the web. Alexander Cartwright, who wrote the rules of baseball, or Abner Doubleday. It turns out that it's Abner Doubleday because this person actually fought at Gettysburg, and Watson got it right. So Watson had to reason many different facts, including the fact that Abner Doubleday also contributed to the rules of baseball and also, in addition, fought at Gettysburg. So these two things had to be put together. Watson had to connect the dots, put two and two together to make this conclusion and get this question right. Now think of a more difficult question like, who is the Dhoni of USA? Those of you who are not from India, Dhoni is the cricket captain of India. So this question is really asking a very deep question in terms of who is the equivalent of the cricket captain of USA. Cricket is not really played in the US, so what's the equivalent of cricket in US? Baseball, probably. So this is an example of analogical reasoning. So X is to USA, what cricket is to India would give us baseball, but the trouble is there is no US baseball team. So even that first step of reasoning doesn't seem to work. So one needs to go beyond deductive reasoning to what is called abductive reasoning, in the sense that one needs to find out the best possible answer. Who is the most popular sportsman in the USA? And there may be many popular sportsmen in the USA, so one is trying to find the best possible answer from a probabilistic perspective. This is an example of abductive reasoning as opposed to deductive reasoning, and we'll come across this later this week. Further, this is an example of reasoning under uncertainty. Most popular is not given in any one web page or any one statement. One needs to come to a conclusion based on a probabilistic assessment of who appears to be most popular using some measures. So this is an example of uncertain reasoning as well. The idea of adding reasoning to the web or to web intelligence systems is credited to Tim Berners-Lee, who, if you remember, is actually credited as being the inventor of the web in the first place way back in the early 90s. In 2000, Tim Berners-Lee came up with his vision for a semantic web, where instead of having simple pages of text which could only be understood by human readers, one would have linked data on the web. So it's not just text, but data which are facts like Obama is the president of the USA, or the president of the USA implies that someone is also the leader of the USA, and things like that. So you would have data which is linked to other data through inference rules, as well as engines or systems that could perform reasoning and therefore answer complicated queries like who is the Dhoni of USA or who is the leader of the USA. We'll come back to the vision that Tim Berners-Lee espoused in 2000 in a little while. For the moment, let's take a closer look at the concept of reasoning with a basic study of logic and how reasoning can be modeled formally. From there, we'll go and study reasoning in more detail, and finally, towards the end of this week's lecture, we'll get back to how facts and rules required for reasoning can be extracted from large volumes of text such as are available on the web.